Hey friends, Kathy Lanzalanco here with another episode of Inspire Careers Spotlight on Careers, the video podcast series where I interview experts from all over the career management space, bring them to you to give you best-in-class information and keep you up to date to help you advance in your careers. And I'm really excited today. My guest is fellow career coach, Karen Sharp-Price. Hi, Karen.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting. You can talk about careers all day long.
Right? And we're career junkies like that. So great excuse for us to talk more about it. And I'm excited to share what Karen's doing because career coaching means a lot of different things to a lot of people and how they approach it. And Karen has a really cool service I want to talk about. But let me formally introduce her first, okay? So Karen is a professional certified career coach. And folks, that's important. Karen and I are both certified coaches, and that's important because not everybody out there giving career advice is. So Karen is, and I want to call that up. She's also a certified veteran career strategist, certified digital career strategist, and certified human resource professional. She has her own podcast, SharpHR Career Corner. And in 2003, it's been a year now, Karen has started the SharpHR Career Women's Support Group to create a safe space for women to exchange ideas, give and receive support from like-minded women surrounding their career experiences, and ask for advice around their career journey. Karen's passionate about assisting individuals with exploring and researching careers, targeting new opportunities, and helping those interested in transitioning into new careers. Karen also is an instructor at Damon University. She works with students, new grads, veterans, and seasoned professionals all throughout their career journey. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Phew.
That's a mouthful because you do a lot. We were just talking before we turned the mic on. Karen's got a lot going on. So we're going to kind of talk about that. A lot of things you got your fingers in, a lot of people that you're helping. But why don't we start out and allow you to tell us a little bit about yourself and Sharp Career Coaching and tell us about your business and how you got into it. You've got a great career journey story.
Yeah, I think that most people don't usually know what they want to do and they have to kind of find their way. And it's not as easy as going from A to Z in a straight line. I think it's usually zigzagging, and that's what really is interesting in everybody's journey. Mine, I tell my students all the time, I was a junior in college. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't know in what way. I knew it wasn't medical. I don't like needles. I don't like blood. So,
you're talking to the nurse, Karen.
I know. So kudos to you for doing that. But I was taking a class, and back then, and I'm really dating myself, but the class was called Personnel, and the light went off. It checked all the boxes of what I wanted to do and help people. So fast forward a little bit, my first career job was the HR director at the Holiday Inn Granite Island. And it was great because I was able to really dive in and learn so much because I had a great mentor. And in fact, so many years later, I still have that mentor that I talk to occasionally. And through the years, we have helped each other through careers, and it's just been a great effort. And so through that process, becoming an HR person, understanding, hiring people, letting people go, training people, I built up a lot of experience around the whole interviewing job search process. Then started going into career coaching. I worked for a company out of Rochester in the Buffalo area. I would go into different companies and be their HR person or train. And I decided I wanted to get married and have a family. And so I started Sharp Human Resources back in 2001. And I was just doing the math, and that's 23 years ago. But what was happening was through those years, marriage, first son, second son, I was getting people that knew me and knew that I was in HR, and they were asking for help. Like they hadn't interviewed in a really long time, or they didn't have an updated resume. And I just started to see a trend where people didn't have somebody to sort of help them get in order before they actually started to apply for positions. And that need started to really increase. And I remember I took a summer and I really thought about it and thought about what I could do. And I decided to transition my company from human resources to career coaching. And so that's what I did. And that's been about 7 to 10 years now that I've been just focusing on people, not companies. But I use all that experience, as you know, because you're from HR, you use all of those tools and experience and resources to help our clients on a daily basis.
But it's a natural transition, I think, and I've come from HR myself. It's a natural transition for HRs to be able to do that, for taking those additional skills. But there is that element of really being on that person's side instead of kind of straddling that advocate for the company, advocate for the employer, and just focusing all of your energy on the people. Karen, why don't you tell us a little bit about the kind of people in particular? And I know it's a little bit of a wide berth for you, but talk to us a little bit about the people that come to you, the kind of people, the people that really are in your zone of genius that you help, that people out there listening right now might want to listen to see if they hear themselves in that.
Yeah. And, I do have a few buckets, I guess I would call them, because one of the things that I noticed, and I know you do too, I was getting students coming out of college with a degree, but didn't know what to do with it or didn't want to use it, and then didn't know where to go from there. And I had gone back to Damon, because that's where I graduated from, and I talked to them about what they provide students while they're in school, because we can do one-on-one with students, but I wanted to reach sort of bigger masses, because I found that this is really a concern across the board. And, everyone watches TV and they see the debt that is being piled up with students. So you don't want to go to school and get a degree and not use it. And so you kind of want to know where you're going to be. So in the process of doing that, we've created 3 courses at Damon in the business department that they have to take before they graduate. And that sort of helps them. I do the same thing with my clients during the day. So one bucket is students in college that maybe just doesn't know what they want to do. And one thing, and I was just talking to my sister the other day about this, is students have too many options these days. Because when you think about us growing up, and even our parents, they usually were whatever their parent was, or one of their parents. They kind of followed that line of work. Nowadays, if a student can think of it, can create it in their mind, they pretty much can make that career happen. And it's just like going into Wegmans and picking out mustard. If there's 16 different kinds, how do you know which one you want? It's right. A difficult thing to pick out. Yeah. No one knows until you try each one. So that's what internships fall into. But anyway, so that's one bucket. Another bucket is I'm also the veterans coach at Damon University, and I work with veterans. There are many different types of veterans who retire from the military and still have many years of life left in their career, and they want to do something, they want to contribute. And then another bucket is women who really are genius, who have lots of skills and resources, but when they look in the mirror, they don't always see that, or they don't know how to translate that into a nice resume and a strong interview. So that would be another bucket of mine, where I help women build up that self-confidence, look at their careers and see what they've done. Just a real quick story. I remember meeting with someone a very long time ago, and she had a career, and it was in finance and administration and that. And she's very bright, very articulate. And she decided that she was going to take a break. She had 3 sons. Her sons were now older. Now she wanted to get back in. We met over coffee, and she said, "Karen, I just don't know what I have skills for. I don't know what I could do." And I said, "Well, what have you been doing over the last, 10 years or so?" She said, "Oh, not really much. I've been volunteering at my boys' school, and, I put on these events, and, I've raised, so much money for fundraising." And I said, "Do you understand what you just told me?" And I said, "You single-handedly did a lot of this?" And she said, "Yeah, I would talk to vendors, and I would handle the money coming in." And I said, "But, there you go." That's a fine example. So I love working with women and helping them see all that they have and all that they have to give, and then having them call me and say, "Thank you." It's one of those priceless moments. And I know you have many of those. There's nothing that compares to when your client calls you and says, "I got the job."
Yeah, but you raise a really great point, Karen. I mean, we all want to hear that from any client we work with, but women, there is a unique challenge there about the way that we have been socialized. We talk about it professionally all day long. We talk about it personally all day long. We talk about it with our friends. And thank goodness the conversations are happening more about it. But the reality is women are still paid. I think it's 82 cents on the dollar. I think it's gone up for white women.
Yeah.
Women of color are paid even less, compared to their male counterparts. Mm-hmm. And we have been socialized to believe that we aren't enough or that we don't have these skills. It just goes so deep. So, when you talk about the women piece, I think that the women continue to remain vulnerable from that standpoint in their career journeys.
Yes.
But let me ask you this, you talk about the new grads and the veterans and the women, all with their unique circumstances. What would you say might be the thread that runs through all of them that really taps into what you do as a career coach so that you can kind of, you certainly see yourself in the women and you understand the veterans' needs and you're a mother. You get what these young kids are going.
Yeah.
But what's that common theme, Karen, that makes you tap into each one of these groups?
Yeah. And I think it happened when, in not so long ago, 10 years maybe, or even less, we used to open up the newspaper. We used to see the ads. We used to take our paper copy of our resume. We pulled it up and put it in an envelope, and we used to mail it out. Then a blink of an eye, that whole process changed, and it's all online. And the people that were comfortable in jobs and positions and things like that for years and years, and that's the way they got their job, they woke up one day and realized, one, maybe they're not happy in the position that they have. Maybe they're just looking for new opportunities, or as students, they're just coming into this new world, but it's uncertainty because they never have had to walk that, and they haven't had to work in that system. And so what I feel that I bring to the table is I've seen it, I've done it, and I have created systems that work very well in those people's minds where they don't have the self-confidence. They're maybe technology deprived in some way. And so it feels like to them just so overwhelming, and that they don't know where to begin. And so as I start, step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. It makes it so much easier to get to where they need to go, because before long, they look back and they see all the steps they've done. That also then builds that self-confidence in each of them as they're doing it. And it's not like they have a lot of the resources and skills and talents within them. I just need to bring them out and show them that they do have them. But I think the technology piece was a really big piece where they just didn't know where to go. They didn't know how to get help. And the mountain just looked so big that they just stayed where they were for fear of taking that first step. Yeah.
And wouldn't you think too, I just feel like the rate of change has just happened so quickly. And now we talk about AI all the time. Yes. In my discovery process with clients, now I'm asking them about their experiences with AI. I didn't do that a year ago.
Yeah, no.
Right? How can we market you with that? Everybody's doing it. Can you talk intelligently about it? What does it mean to your industry? Mm-hmm. And again, if you're not using it for whatever reason, out of judgment, but if you're not using it, your industry isn't necessarily, involved in that yet, just one more thing. And it just seems like every day it's one more thing. Now it's the job market. Now it's the elections that are coming up. Yes. You turn around, there's something else that impacts it. And of course, reading the media, watching the news, it becomes very overwhelming to know, can I compete in this environment, right?
And should I? And then for women, I will always use this analogy that generally speaking, if a man and a woman are going for a job and they look at a job posting and the man says, I've got, 3 out of 10, I'm ready, let's go for it. The woman will look at it and she might have 6 or 7 and say, oh, I'm not ready yet. I don't have all of them. It's the perception that they have of themselves and their skills that they need a career coach to coach them along. And it's a process. You don't go, from one day to the next day saying, oh yeah, I got this. It's a small step-by-step process. And I think that also scares people, is that they're afraid of that big leap. But I think working with you and I, it's a process, and we take them step by step through it. And I think that is key. And the AI thing, we have just touched it. Like, it is growing leaps and bounds, and there's just so many resources out there. I can't keep up with all the new ones. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And, we're out there every day learning about LinkedIn, doing things, but every time we turn around, there's something new, there's new functionality, so we're just trying to get through it. So imagine that you don't have that perspective, right?
You're not dealing with it on a daily basis. Yep.
Yeah, it's just a lot. And you think about if you go on a weight loss journey, generally you join some kind of community or get some type of online help, like support for a coach. Or if you're, you're training for a marathon, you get a coach for that. So really, when you're taking a journey, right, you to have that additional support for somebody that's in the trenches, as it were, right? I mean, my daughter's planning a trip to Europe with her friends for next summer. She works in travel, but she also has a travel advisor, right? So like, and what's that statistic too about people invest more in their vacations than they do in their career planning?
Yeah.
Right. But nowadays it's just really it's so multi-layered. But let's go back to the women. I want to talk about what your solution has been to address some of the issues that are particular to women. You've got a community. Tell us about that. Tell us about how it serves and supports the women that are involved.
Well, so over a year ago, with the clients that I have and had, women tend to be the ones who are sort of overwhelmed, and they come to me, and I was hearing similar stories. And I thought to myself, one-on-one, it's kind of like when you talk to your children. If they talk to the principal or a teacher, they listen, but when they talk to their parents, they don't always believe in it. But I thought to myself, on one-on-one, I'm repeating the same information over and over and over again to all of these women. And, I believe that they were believing me, but I thought to myself, if they could hear other women's stories and understand that they really aren't alone, and these stories are very similar, and then with that, build a community where they can ask questions, they can become friends. They don't have to just meet online, but they can, go get coffee, talk on Zoom, and get to know each other and build even a bigger community than what I have. So what I did was I just kind of put it out there to see if I would have any interest. And it just started taking off. And I left it up to them as to how often we would meet. And I was thinking maybe once a month, just to kind of get together. And they wanted to do it every 2 weeks. So what we've done is every 2 weeks on a Monday at lunchtime between 12 and 1, we get together on Zoom, and it's not required. So I never ask for people to tell me whether they're going to be there or not, because life is too busy and things come up and meetings and whatever and kids. So whoever can show up, shows up. And sometimes we have a couple, sometimes we have more. Like it's just very different every time. But what it has done is it has grown across the country. So we will get people in different states because of LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and all of those. People learn about it and hear about it. And anybody that calls me and talks to me, I tell them, hey, you don't have to work with me. You can be in the community if you want. There's no fee. It's all free. But I just felt like it was something that I needed to do to help my own, to build support and to hear it. And so here's the other thing too about this community. You don't necessarily need to be looking for a job. You don't necessarily need to be in transition and trying to figure out where you want to go. If you're just a career woman who wants to support other women in the life of a woman, then you can join and just be there to listen and to give advice. And I'm not the only one giving advice. I actually tried to stay quieter, and I want other people to kind of chime in, and because they're doing the actual applying and interviewing, and they're the ones in it. I can give my perception of things, but they're the ones who are doing it. So I want them to get real world advice because they're actually doing it with each other. And, here we are a year later and it's still going, and it's been doing it. It depends on if there's a holiday or something on a Monday, but for the most part, it's every 2 weeks. And all they need to do is if anybody would like to join it, they just have to send me an email, and I will put them on the Google list, and they will get just the Zoom meeting link, and they can come and try it out and see if they like it. And they can come and go as they please throughout. And if they have any, burning questions that they want to ask, they can just ask the group. So it's been great. I enjoy doing it. And I feel like I'm just kind of giving back a little bit.
It's incredible. And, Karen, so congratulations, first of all, on taking the idea from conception to fruition and then allowing others to run with it, allowing your members to kind of design it the way that they want. But Karen, what is the benefit of having the women supporting the women? Like the safety within the community, what's that about?
I think it's because women are out in the real world and it's very competitive. They feel very competitive with, other women, but also males. And women go through a lot of different things that I don't believe men really can understand. They haven't walked in their shoes and they can't, they just can't. So it's hard for them to even understand it, even if they were the most understanding, empathetic man alive, because they're not a female. They can't really understand some of the things. And so, number one, I think that's what binds us together. And I think that also creates at the same time sort of a safe area, a safe community, because we know that we are all in it together. And I think that really has helped. And it's also women that are just coming out of college all the way to women who might be retiring in the next 5 years. So it's a broad range of ages, which I also think is actually really helpful because some people have already been there, done it, and maybe they're doing it again and again and again. So they have a lot of experience to give. And I think it's just really powerful. I just contributed to the fact that I was really close with my grandparents, and I would, talk to my grandfather almost every single day. And he'd always ask me, how was your day? Yeah, every single day. I'd come up with something new. But having that kind of bond and being able to talk and kind of talk things through, I think is really valuable to people. And we just need more of that. We need more of communities that are together instead of separated. And if I can do it in a very non-political, non-judgmental environment, I want to. Everything that's said there is kept confidential. And some people are going through some really hard times. And I think that it's nice to have some community there that you can talk to. And it also doesn't hurt that someone might be out in, Washington State and you're here in Buffalo. So whatever you say, it doesn't matter. Right away. Sometimes that helps as well. So,
but Jenny, you mentioned about the students earlier about how, when we kind of started our careers, it was kind of pretty much you knew where you were going to go, or your options were a little more limited. But now students can really, if they can imagine it, they can have it. But I see that too now, even as we women as everybody gets a little older, the world has opened up. So I think it's probably a great place for exploration and hearing what others are doing so that you can kind of imagine yourself. And if you're like, wow, I never knew I could do that, maybe I should try that. We're all working longer too, right?
Yeah. And you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And I know from my classes, I have a speaker series where I bring people in to talk about their career journey. And my podcast is conversations with people about their career journey, because I really believe that listening to somebody else and what they've gone through can help you. One, you learn about a career that you may never have heard about and you didn't know existed. And then you also understand that people have ups and downs in their career. And sometimes some of my guest speakers have lost their positions along the way, and they'll be like, well, maybe I shouldn't come. No, I want you to come, and I want you to talk about it. I mean, I know that's very difficult to do sometimes, but talk about that situation, because I want these students to know that they may lose their job along the way, but it's not the end of the world, and they can get back up and they can get to even a better place. So, there's just share, I leave everything that I say is be kind, just be kind to each other. It's a tough enough world as it is. So let's just be kind.
Well, I think what you're doing is you're keeping the humanity throughout the process. Now, as you mentioned before, technology, right? You can apply for jobs and never talk to anybody. You can have to do a HireVue interview where you're one-sided interviews, or you're just talking to people on the phone or whatever. And it's become so impersonal.
Yes.
And I think people are craving that connection again.
Yeah. The silence is deadly. And I'm sure that a lot of people that come to you, they're just, I don't understand. What am I doing wrong? I'm not hearing anything back. And, that is reality. And I'm sure that when you were in HR, that's not how HR was. It was not the way it was meant to be, where it was supposed to be so cut off and not so personable. And when I left, I would answer anybody who applied. I would talk to people, but my clients call me and say, I'm not hearing a word. I'm ghosted. I'm, all these things. And if you're alone, especially in Buffalo in January with no sun, and you're not hearing anything back, it has a mental issue with you. Like, it really can get you down in the dumps very, very quickly. And so that community of saying, hey, this is what I've been going through, and then hearing it 5 other times with 5 other women, say, oh, okay, I'm not the only one that's going through this. And I think that just has a lot of value to it.
Yeah, it does. Congratulations. That is awesome. Maybe the only friendly voice they hear that week in terms of somebody that can really feel what they're going through gives them that motivation to continue to submit that next application, to take that next chance.
Yeah.
Conversation, right? You never know. And that's the thing, is we just never know whose lives we touch. And communities like this, people may be quiet. They may not be necessarily completely engaged, but they're listening. Mm-hmm. They're listening, and you never know who's going to take something away to heart that somebody has said. Yeah. So it's just a great place for that idea sharing and that support. Congratulations, Karen. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Let me ask you this. So do you have any predictions for the rest of 2024 in terms of what you kind of expect to see out there for job seekers? Anything that you kind of see coming around the pike, that any early indications?
I gotta say, it has been an interesting 4 years with COVID and how COVID has impacted people's lives. To start back, I think COVID, when it hit, people had time to reflect because life almost stopped. And so we had to look around, and we had to look in the mirror, and we had to decide, were we happy or were we not in wherever we were doing? A lot of people decided, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be unhappy anymore. I don't want to be miserable anymore. I don't want to hate Monday mornings. And so there was a lot of movement towards transitioning into a new career and finding something else. I think we're only into, 3 or 4 weeks into January. I think it's slowing down for that population of people. I think those that really made the big move are in the process of doing it, or have done it. I think that those who are in positions right now are pretty much trying to kind of stay put a little bit for this year. With the elections, like you spoke earlier, we never know with elections what that means for the economy and for careers and for the unemployment rate and all that. And I think people, if they're sitting a little bit comfortable, they might stay there, and they might not be that great resignation that really hit. I think that has slowed down considerably as well. So there's not as many passive, I think, employees out there, which I think is going to impact what 2024 looks like for employers. So employers might not have that ability to sort of steal an employee from another place. Yep. And if they do, they're going to have to make it a really good offer in order to make that move. So I think the word for me for 2024 is really going to be competitive for trying to find the right job if you're looking. I think employers are also going to start tightening the belts. We know that IT has. We know that there's been lots of massive layoffs. I know of a healthcare industry. I know that a little bit of that has seen some cuts. So there is still cuts coming. And I think, again, just like everything else, November is really usually the slowdown. Like, people will come to me and say, I don't know, I'm not seeing much. And I'll be like, yep, you got to hold your breath till the middle of January because this is the way that it is. If they want to use the money up in their budget, then, they'll fill those positions. But if they want to tighten their reins, that's when they're going to do it because it's the end of the year. So it really just depends on the industry and what's going on with their individual companies and whether they have it or not. So I think for us, I think that, yes, there are jobs out there. I think that, it's so funny. Today I was at a coffee shop and it was pretty quiet and there was only 3 people in the shop, but 2 people were interviewing one person. And I was just kind of listening. I was up at the counter, but I could hear behind me the conversation. And I have said this so many times when I was an HR person, when I was interviewing somebody, I would think to myself, if I had just been able to talk to you for like a half an hour before you came in to interview, I could have given you some tips. And I was thinking the same thing. I thought to myself, you got to put a little pep in your step because of the way that that person was kind of answering questions, kind of low key, kind of down here. And you got to kind of, so I think for this competitive edge, you got to show why should they interview you? What value do you bring to the table? What are you going to do for them? And you got to be enthusiastic. You got to be excited. You got to know why you want to come to this company. Not just that you threw out these resumes in one stock and so you went for the interview, but why did you pick these 5 companies to interview? And why did you want this job? And what do they have that really is bringing you to the table? And you got to bring that energy with you. So that's my thought. I don't know. What are you thinking about 2024?
Wow, I totally agree with that. Totally agree with it. You know, you're talking about having the target company in mind and being able to speak to it. Nobody wants to hear anymore about what you want, right? Well, I want a job at a fast-growing company. No. Why do you want to work here? I'm hiring you to solve a problem for me. What problem are you going to solve? And how is it that I need you versus somebody else? So you're absolutely right. It's a different way of thinking about marketing yourself for these jobs. You mentioned the passion piece, the excitement. You're right. Because you know what? You have to be dealing with my team. And if you don't seem personable, if you don't seem excited, there's going to be, because there's so many people applying for every job now, there's going to be plenty of people behind you. I will pick somebody else that really wants to work for me. Yeah. But that's a throwback from the old days where everything was so tight and everybody had their middle initial on their resume. And it was just like, it was so structured, right? And it was such the formula. Those days are gone. You have to show we call that your unique value proposition, right? But you have to show your individualism, why it is that you're the person to hire. So I completely agree with you, Karen. I think it's competitiveness. People have to think differently about it. I would add that I think people need to leave themselves a little longer runway than they may have thought. That the last few years, to your point, since COVID, when people were getting hired at a drop of a hat, I'm seeing it seems like people are taking a little longer to get hired. But what I'm seeing is that once that alignment is there with company and the right candidate, seems to be moving quicker. I think that means that companies are recognizing that they can't be playing around with some of these people anymore, meaning you found somebody, that talent that you want that's going to be good for you, they're jumping on it, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Right? So if you need to leave yourself a runway, job search takes longer than you probably think it does.
Yeah.
And so, before you think, well, I'll go looking for a job in March, once the January thaws or whatever, that's great, but you should be thinking about it today. Because if you think about it in March, you may not be ready to do it till April, right?
Yeah. And the position might not be around till June. And if you can, I really strongly do not let your job go currently until you have a new job. Because I think that a lot of people sometimes just get fed up and they walk out and then they realize that it could take 4 to 6 months to get the job. And they're like, what? That's not what I was hearing. Well, things are changing on a rapid basis. And so, we look at 2024 because we're just starting out in January, but it can change in another 3 months. We could have a whole different view on what it's going to be like. So yeah, you really got to have your fingers on the pulse. You got to know what's going on in your industry. You have to do the research. And when someone asks you, what do you know about our company? Please, please, please don't tell them, well, I'm not really sure, but I was going to come to the interview and try to learn more, because that's the kiss of death. Do not say those words. The interview will be done in about 20 minutes.
But the good news is that's how a lot of people show up. So if you don't show up that way, you are going to stand out.
Yes.
You can say, look, I've already researched. I've already, you look up the people online, you look up whoever you're going to interview with, you look up their profile on LinkedIn. You've done your research. You can comment when they say, do you have any questions? Actually, I did. Right? And ask them really great questions about the company. That's a great way and a relatively easy way to be able to stand out in the interview, because most people do that, right? Yes. Well, I don't have any questions, or I was hoping you could tell me. Oh, they're not going to tell you. They're going to show you the door.
Yes. And then the biggie is the thank you note. How many people don't write a thank you note? And I have known people that supervisors in that, that candidate might have been a really good, solid candidate, but they did not receive a thank you note from them, and they take them off the list. And so it's a very simple thing. And nowadays you can do it by email. You don't even have to do it personal and send it in the mail. But if you do, you're going to wow them. So, but it's a simple thing. A thank you note goes just so far these days. So there's so many little things that seem very basic, but a lot of people don't. And again, that competitive edge, when you're talking about how do you stand out, these are very simple things to stand out. And if you look at how many people get interviewed and how many people do each of these things, if you come in and you do all of those things, you are going to be a strong candidate.
Well, I guess the last thing I'll kind of share with that, I totally agree. I do this hand motion, and if you're listening to this on audio, you won't see it, but if you're watching the video, I do this stacking thing with my hands. Like I tell people, there's no magic bullet that's going to do everything for you. It's strategy, stacking one thing on top of the other, right? Mm-hmm. Being thoughtful about what you want to do, identifying your job targets, getting a strong resume, building out your LinkedIn profile, tapping into your network, learning how to, talk about yourself. And it's these one thing after another. And then before you know it, you start getting the momentum and things start accelerating. Yeah. But you've got to strap yourself in a little bit too, meaning it can be, as you said, when you're ghosted or it takes a little bit longer than you think, it can be very demoralizing. Why we need community. We're going to share Karen's link for getting in contact with her to join her community. And if that's not the right one for you, if you're a gentleman and you're looking for something, find somebody else that you can talk to. Start your own community.
Yeah, I was just going to say, start your own.
You have to wait for somebody to do it for you. Yeah. Job search support groups. And that's what we're talking about here. People that are that are going through the process, have been through the process, are seeing that they may become part of that down the line. But it's also kind of like high school seniors coming back to the freshmen, like, I've already been there, and I'm going to come to tell you what I've learned, right? Yeah. That's a beautiful thing in your group and other support groups.
It is very, very helpful. Yeah, it really is. And you need people. You need friends. You need people around you that can help build you up when things get quiet. And they will. From time to time, they will get quiet. And so you just need to have some things in place and have some support groups and do those, baby steps. And you were talking about stacking. I call them baby steps. They're the same thing, but they build up your confidence so that when you have that call and you go in for that interview, you are prepared because you've done all the baby steps. You've done all the stacking. If you try to do, go from A to Z in a big leap, you're not prepared for that interview. But you can do many, many things to build yourself up and build that confidence up. So, yeah.
And I think that's exactly where we'll leave it today, because that's perfect. Be prepared. Get help when you need it. Ask for help. Help is everywhere, right? Ask the right questions, because not everybody's the right fit for everybody, but there is help out there. Nobody has to do this alone, whether it's one-on-one help, whether it's community help, whether it's just getting online and just listening from a lot of experts. Nobody has to do it alone, but it is confusing even for the best people anymore. It's just a lot.
Yeah, it is.
It's just a lot. So thank you so much, Karen Sharp-Price, for joining me today. Thank you for talking about your community. Thank you for helping our audience learn a little bit more about what you do. We're going to be posting all of Karen's contact information in here. Karen would love to be able to hear from you, love to be able to talk to you. Reach out to her, follow her on LinkedIn. She's a wonderful person to know, and I'm grateful you were here today. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Kathy. I really appreciate it. It was funny being on the other side.
Right? For me, asking the questions for you, but that's good. Keeps everybody on their toes, right?
That's right.
Wonderful. And thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of Inspire Career Spotlight on Careers. Remember, follow us here on YouTube. Ring the bell. Make sure that you subscribe and get the latest content that drops. And we are glad to have you here. And until our next episode, live inspired.